This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. Life's journey brings constant change filled with exciting surprises and grand challenges. And with its spaciousness, power, and style, the Toyota Grand Highlander is more than a vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From the spacious adult-sized third row to seating for up to 8 passengers, the Toyota Grand Highlander is up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, May 1st, only on Netflix.
Entering a realm between the hidden and forgotten, a slipstream caught between realities, a secret museum of the esoteric, the private library of shadows, all taking place in a world forged from mystery and caught between logic and myth. You are entering Parareality.
Hello and welcome to the mysterious world of Parareality. A reality where the unknown meets the unexplained and everything is a mystery. I'm Sandman, and I'm your host. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining me in the secret bunker for another episode of Parareality. As I'm recording this episode tonight, I'm down here safe in the secret bunker, but outside, it's really, really bad weather. There's been tornado and flash flood watches and warnings for actually most of this week and definitely most of the day, and tonight is no different. Now, I'm recording this episode about a month early. It's April 5th, 2025, and this first week of April of 2025, man, has been rough. This heavy storm system that's been passing through and they're just kind of hovering over us all this week has spawned several tornadoes. It's created flash floods all over the place and caused who knows how much money and damage. And it's been responsible for at least 10 deaths here in the state of Tennessee, and that's according to the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. So if you're listening to this podcast and you've been affected by these storms, especially if you live in Tennessee, I'm glad that you're safe. And I'm sending out heartfelt condolences to those of you who have lost property or friends or family, loved ones, or even pets. I hope that this podcast provides you with some sort of escape from the bad stuff that's been going on all around you lately, at least for a little while. And maybe this can be some sort of distraction just for a little bit for you. Well, I tell you, the mood for tonight is definitely a somber one, and that's just keeping up with the theme of all these storms raging outside. This is also kind of a follow-up from an episode that I did 2 years ago about the Covenant school shooter here in Nashville. And the reason that I've taken so long to record this follow-up episode is twofold. First, out of respect to the families of the victims, they did not want a lot of the information that I'm about to tell you in tonight's episode released to the public until now. And second, because the Metro Nashville Police Department has waited until now to release their official report on the incident. And if you would like to read what that secret report contains, which is basically what I'm basing this episode off of, I have, I'm going to say I have an exclusive document. Probably by the time it's exclusive as of tonight that I'm recording this episode. By the time this thing hits the air, it will not be an exclusive document any longer. However, if you want to read the official Metro Nashville Police Department report on the Covenant school shooting, you're going to have to figure out how to become a member of the Secret Sanctum. You got to find the Secret Bunker webpage on parareality.com. It's not that hard to do, but it's hidden somewhere on my website. And if you can find out how to access the secret bunker, then you'll have access to this document and a whole bunch of other declassified documents that I have obtained over the years, ranging from UFOs to JFK to cryptozoological creatures, all kinds of official government documents. Some things are exclusive to the Parareality podcast. I've got some audio. Maybe one day I'll have some exclusive videos and stuff up like that. But yeah, if you want to find out what the 40-something page report is about the Covenant school shooting, you'll have to figure out how to access the secret bunker. And once you do that, you'll be an official member of the Secret Sanctum. So good luck. March 27th, 2023. It was a quiet Monday morning at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. Parents were dropping off children, teachers preparing lessons, just another spring day. Until it wasn't. By 10:13 a.m., shots rang out inside of the school. 6 people, 3 children and 3 staff, would never go home again. The shooter was a former student, but this was not an impulsive act. What investigators uncovered in the days that followed would reveal chilling preparation, hours of surveillance, and the disturbing writings of a deeply troubled mind. Tonight, I'm pulling from the official police summary of the investigation to examine what really happened inside and before the attack at the Covenant School. Of course, to learn more, you'll have to turn on, tune in, and find out. But before I do that, I'd like to take just a minute to welcome some new followers of the podcast. I'd like to welcome new follower Kiki Haley, my friend at Danger Zone Video. Can't believe it's taking you this long now to follow me. And Destiny Michaela. Kiki Haley, Danger Zone Video, and Destiny Michaela. Thank you guys and girls for the follow. You know, I've got over a couple of thousand followers now, so if you're listening to this podcast and you're not a regular follower of the podcast, please be sure to do so. Whatever podcast app you're listening on, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, whatever the thousands of seemingly endless number of podcast platforms that there are, whatever you're listening on, make sure you follow me on that podcast app. And I think that you'll find that this podcast differs from others like it by offering just a unique point of view that's different from the norm. I simply present the evidence to you and let you, the listener, make up your own mind. And I encourage you to do your own research. And it's not always just about the paranormal. It's not always about ghosts and UFOs and cryptids. I do a lot of conspiracy theory stuff too, and I do a lot of real world stuff. I have been told that some of my best episodes were on the Nashville bomber who blew up 2nd Avenue, downtown Nashville on Christmas Day 2020. So I do a lot of real world mysteries too, as well as conspiracy theories, paranormal, UFOs, aliens, ghost stories, stuff like that, psychics, you name it, I'll do it. And this is just one of those different topics that I tend to tackle from time to time. And if you don't follow me on the socials as well, you need to do that too. It's where you can keep up with all the latest goings on with Para-Reality, as well as get a look at my a little glimpse into my personal life. Now, I'm admittedly horrible about posting on social media because before I know it, I've got like a week has gone by and I've been busy and I'm like, oh man, I didn't post this week. My goal is to post once a day, and I horribly suck at it. But I'm trying. So, but when I do post, I post some good stuff. At least I think so. So if you are follow me on the podcast platforms, but you don't follow me on socials, then you need to do that too. I'm on Facebook. I'm on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, at least while it's still going. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Blue Sky as well. They're all the same handle at Para-Real Radio, except for Facebook. Facebook is sandman.parareality. But X, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Para-Real Radio. Anyway, I'll be giving you the deets on how you can do that later on here in the podcast. And once again, welcome to the new followers, Kiki Haley, Danger Zone Video, and Destiny Michaela. Thank you all for the follow.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Tonight's episode is a harrowing deep dive into one of the most tragic and chilling events in recent history. The March 2023 Covenant shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. With the release of the official Metro Nashville Police Department investigative summary, we now have a clearer yet deeply disturbing look into the mind of the shooter, Audrey Hale. Now, let me tell you, this isn't easy material, but it is important. It reveals how far someone can go to conceal their intentions and the catastrophic consequences when red flags are missed. So let's begin. It all started long before the shooting. According to the final case summary published by the Metro Nashville Police Department, the shooter, 28-year-old Audrey Hale, spent months preparing for the assault. She was obsessed, methodical, and very, very quiet about it. Hale created maps, detailed maps of the school, including entry points, possible blind spots, and even schedules. She even diagrammed her own movement through the building, and investigators discovered this along with 16 journals and notebooks filled with handwritten notes, calculations, and violent ideations. Hale also conducted extensive casing of the campus. She took photos. She recorded video, footage captured from her car, from the parking lot, and even while walking around inside the building. She monitored school activity from afar, planning the timing of her attack to coincide with what she perceived as vulnerabilities in the morning routine. Hale's connection to the Covenant School dated back to childhood. She was a former student at the private school, and on September 18th, 2021, Hale re-entered the halls of her former school under a false pretense. Claiming to be a nostalgic former student, she requested a private tour, and a school staff member obliged. But Hale had darker intentions. During this visit, she used her cell phone to take photographs and record a video walkthrough of the campus. She captured doorways, hallways, and entry points that she would later use to map her attack. At the time, the staff that was conducting the tour didn't really think anything suspicious, and the ruse was subtle, was calm, was quiet, and it was very intentional. The footage, which was discovered after her death, showed just how deliberately she studied the building's layout. She filmed angles of escape routes, stairwells, and classroom entrances. Now, this was not a spontaneous act. This was a slow burn. Let me make that clear. This was not something that she just decided on a whim that she was going to do. This wasn't a moment of madness. It was a long, deliberate descent into darkness. So, with that, you would think that she would have some sort of manifesto, right? It was reported that there was a manifesto, and one of the things that the news was saying was there's a manifesto, and the families of the victims don't want this made public, you know, and there was a lot of speculation going around. And I'm not going to lie, I did some speculating too in my original episode, right? I was thinking about reasons why she chose Covenant School, and we'll get into the real reasons why she chose it later on. But I speculated that because she was transgender, that that had something to do with the reason why she shot up the school. That maybe, you know, it was because she felt ostracized while she was going there. Of course, that was before she was, you know, trans, but I kind of thought that maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe she was, you know, an outsider, an outcast or whatever. And actually she did feel that way, but not, I don't think necessarily because she was transgender. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that she was gay and was having some conflicting feelings and felt like she was rejected by a lot of normal society. But like I said, you would think that if someone would spend so much time methodically planning this out, you know, recording videos, casing the joint, that there would be some sort of manifesto, especially given her history. So let's talk about the so-called manifesto. There wasn't one. One of the most debated and misunderstood aspects of this case was the so-called manifesto. And in the wake of the shootings, in the wake of mass shootings, should I say, there's often a public fixation on the motive. You know, there has to be a document, there has to be a cause, there has to be something to explain the horror of what happened. Why did this person do what they did? But in the case of Audrey Hale, there were writings, but there was no manifesto. Instead, what police found were 16 spiral-bound notebooks and loose pages filled with disorganized writings, some dating back years. These were not the coherent, agenda-driven documents that we associate with manifestos. They were scattered, frantic, obsessive, and violent. Some pages detailed prior fantasies about school shootings, and others included expressions of identity confusion, religious guilt, and emotional isolation. They were filled with disturbing mixtures of ramblings, grievances, violent ideations, and suicidal thoughts. Some pages included drawings of the Covenant School. Some had floor plans and references to previous mass shooters. Other pages detailed her emotional struggles, her disdain for societal norms, and a growing sense of disconnection. But there was no single unifying ideology. There was no political or religious crusade, just the writings of a person who was unraveling. She even recorded dozens of self-made videos, often in her car, talking to the camera about her desire to end her life and inflict suffering and stuff like that. And in one video, she expressed admiration for the notoriety of other killers. And these weren't just diary entries. They were fragments of a crumbling psyche broadcasting into the void. She didn't publish this anywhere, right? She was just recording this, I guess, for, posterity's sake, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later. Now, I don't have access to any, and I want to make this perfectly clear, I do not have access to any of the Audrey Hale writings or videos. Once again, I do not have access to any of the writings or videos that Audrey Hale did. I am basing this episode based solely off the 40-something page document that was written, the final report that was written by Metro Nashville Police Department. Okay? So, like I said, she wasn't making just plain old diary entries. What she was doing was showing us just glimpses of her psyche as it was crumbling. And her apparent only motive for this act of terror that she did, fame. That's all. Nothing else. There was no political or social agenda. She wasn't trying to make a statement about anything, and she wasn't doling out some twisted form of revenge at the Covenant School for anything at all. She just wanted to be famous. She envisioned books being written about her and documentaries about her and what she did being filmed. She wanted to go down in infamy. In fact, she wanted this sick version of fame so badly that she wanted to kill at least 40 people before she was killed herself. She wrote that a death count of anything less than 10 would mean that her attack would have been a complete and utter failure. Well, she got 6, so congratulations, Audrey. You were not only a failure in life, but you're a failure in death as well. Now, Hale had also been in frequent psychiatric treatment. At least 10 sessions with mental health professionals were documented in the 2 years leading up to the shooting. Now, despite this, she was able to purchase not 1, but 7 firearms legally beginning in 2020. And alarmingly, her parents confiscated at least one of those guns at some point, but she just simply replaced it later. On the 27th of March, 2023, her arsenal included one Lead Star Grunt 15 AR pistol, a Kel-Tec Sub 2000 carbine, a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield handgun, and she also had over 150 rounds of ammunition. All those weapons were loaded. All were at the ready, and all were purchased legally. Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk about the timeline of the attack and break that down. But first, time to pay some bills, unfortunately. Get a couple of these pesky commercials out of the way, and I will be right back.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Okay, so now it's time to break down the timeline of the attack. So March 27th, 2023. At 8 a.m., Hale left her home carrying a duffel bag and a backpack. Inside were weapons, ammo, tactical gear, and, for whatever reason, her stuffed animals. She left behind a suicide note, messaged a friend via Instagram, and set her phone to record. She drove to a local gun range where she prepared her gear for over an hour. By 9:53 a.m., she arrived at the Covenant School and sat in her car for several minutes. At 10:09 a.m., she exited her car, geared up out there in the parking lot right by her car, and approached the building. Moments later, she blasted through the glass door with her AR pistol, and that set off the fire alarm, and it started this unfortunate chain of tragedy. She moved with purpose, checking rooms, firing at anyone in her path. Michael Hill, who was a custodian at the Covenant School, was the first person to encounter Hale, and he was shot and killed almost immediately. And as the fire alarm rang out, evacuation protocols triggered, and students began filing out towards the exits, unaware that this horror was unfolding in their very school. At a stairwell, Hale encountered three young students, Haley Scruggs, William Kinney, and Evelyn Deekhouse, along with a substitute teacher named Cynthia Peake. Hale opened fire and killed all four. And as chaos erupted, teachers secured students in classrooms per active shooter protocol, locking doors, pulling blackout curtains, and using security bars. The principal of the school, Catherine Kuntz, after hearing the gunfire, ran towards the shooter. Even though she was unarmed, she ran towards the shooter and was fatally shot near the front office. Now, police arrived within 15 minutes of Hale entering the school and engaged her on the second floor. At 10:24 a.m., officers neutralized her, and the entire attack lasted just 14 minutes. So it was fast, it was brutal, and it left the city of Nashville stunned. So, I mean, that is amazing that Hale's attack lasted 14 minutes. and police got on the scene within 15 minutes of her entering the school. So there was only 1 minute between the time that the attack started and the time that the police got there. That is amazing. And in total, Hale fired 152 rounds during the assault. I don't know how many hit their targets and how many missed. But remember I said she had over 150 extra rounds of ammunition. So sounds to me like she pretty much used up all of her ammo, or just about all of it. So I don't think that she was as good of a shot as what she was anticipating herself to be. But the level of premeditation that she displayed, both in planning and in the psychological rehearsal, suggested that she had run this scenario over and over in her mind. This was a mission for her. It wasn't a mental breakdown. Now, she had gone to gun ranges and had practiced shooting. And I'm assuming it was with all of the weapons that she had, but I don't know. I do know there's pictures of her at a gun range, practicing. And don't forget, she went to a gun range and sat in the parking lot before getting her gear ready, before this happened. So she wasn't a stranger to gun ranges. She wasn't, a stranger to weapons. I'm sure if she spent all this time preparing, that she had to have made sure that she knew how to operate all three of those weapons that she had. But if she used up 152 rounds during the assault and had 150 rounds extra of ammo, that gives her, who knows? I mean, I don't know how many rounds each weapon had. I don't know if she had extended magazines or anything like that. So who knows? I'm sure the police do, know how many total rounds she had on her at the time. But it seems to me like 152 rounds and you only killed 6 people. That's not a very good shot. Now, of course, I'm sure that she didn't shoot each of those 6 individuals just one time. But still, you're not going to, I just don't think she was as good as what she thought she was. So, why Covenant? That's a good question, and one that has been asked by Nashvillians for the last 2 years. Why Covenant? We know that she went there as a child, but that still didn't tell us why she chose this school. Well, the notebooks revealed that Hale had considered other targets. Notes listed Opry Mills Mall, there was a church, and there were other schools. The only common factor here was vulnerability and emotional connections. So Hale ultimately chose Covenant because it represented a formative chapter in her past, and because, in her own words, it was, quote, easy to get in. She also said that it was, and I quote again, a target of opportunity. Her familiarity with the building gave her confidence. Her personal connection gave it symbolic weight. So what was Nashville Metro Police Department? What was their conclusion? Well, it wasn't about revenge. It was about control. She was looking to make a statement, to control how she was seen, how she would be remembered. It was a warped attempt at some sort of legacy. But the investigation also raised some hard questions. What can be done when someone plans in silence without broadcasting obvious signs? How do we balance mental health intervention with civil liberty? And what role did untreated identity confusion and inner turmoil play in Hale's state of mind? So we have to move forward without any answers. But when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about how we can do this. How can we move forward, even though we don't really have a lot of answers?
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
The Covenant school shooting didn't end with the arrest of an accomplice, a manifesto explaining everything, or a movement behind it. It just ended with silence. The families of the victims, Evelyn Deakhouse, Haley Scruggs, William Kinney, Cynthia Peake, Mike Hill, and Catherine Kuntz, are left with pain, not any real sense of closure. And a community is still grappling with the question, could this have been prevented? Well, the Nashville police were clear. There were no red flags that rose to the level of intervention. Hale had legally purchased the weapons. She had hidden her intentions extremely well. There were writings, but no cries for help that reached the surface. And in the end, this case doesn't end with a manifesto or a movement of any kind. It just ends with questions. Questions like, how did someone with documented mental illness legally purchase 7 firearms in total? Why didn't therapy notes or concerning behavior trigger any kind of reporting mechanism? What systems are in place, and which one of those systems failed? And perhaps the most disturbing question is, how many others like Audrey Hale are planning something like this in silence right now? The Covenant case is a wake-up call, not just about school safety, but about the failure to intervene before it's too late. So, in closing here, what this whole thing reveals is not just a horrific act, but a gap between what we can see and what someone can hide. A person can meticulously plan destruction, disguise their mental unraveling in silence, and leave behind only questions. The Covenant case is devastating, but it also forces us to confront hard questions like, how can someone with a documented history of mental health issues legally acquire firearms multiple times? Why did red flags in Hale's writings, behavior, and therapy notes not trigger stronger intervention? And what can we learn from this chilling level of premeditation? This wasn't a mental snap, right? This was a long, cold descent into darkness. In Hale's own words, captured in one of her videos, this is the only way I'll be seen. That's a tragic cry for significance that ended in violence. Let this be a wake-up call, not just for school security or gun laws, but for how we treat the invisible suffering of those around us. This was not an impulsive act. It was not a psychotic break. It was a calculated, premeditated massacre by a person who planned every hallway, every bullet, every door. Probably no other school shooter has planned so meticulously and for so long. You can go all the way back to the ones that kind of started it all. Dylan Klebold and I forgot the other's name. At Columbine, they planned that whole thing and planned it for a little bit, but they did not go to the lengths that Audrey Hale did. Her unraveling, her mental unraveling, took a long time. It took years. And within that unraveling, she still had enough wits about her to do this meticulous plan, the surveillance, the video footage, going into the school under false pretenses, pictures, making maps and diagrams. That's on one hand. On the other, you had all of these chaotic, discombobulated ramblings that she was doing in her writings and in her videos. She even titled the video series, and I can't remember what it was. I don't have the document in front of me, but she did the videos that she was recording. She titled them and had a plan on making 13 of them in total. Well, she made 12. She missed it by one. But she's, like I said, even though she was unraveling mentally, she still had enough wits about her to do stuff like this. But then again, there was so much stuff within the video, so much stuff in the writing that was just discombobulated and chaotic. But still, what she did wasn't just an impulse thing. It wasn't just she had some sort of psychotic break one day and just decided to shoot up a school. She did this in a calculated, premeditated fashion. She planned this meticulously for a long, long time. And even though in the end, she did not accomplish what she wanted to do, she still made that name for herself and got her 15 minutes of fame, right? But behind the weapons and the violence was still someone that was a human being, someone who was suffering, someone who was hurting deeply and for a long time. Now, we're never, ever going to understand all of this. We're never really going to know truly 100% for sure why she did it, although we have a pretty good understanding of it, but we'll never be able to get 100% confirmation of that because she's not here to tell us. And perhaps we shouldn't try to rationalize the irrational. But we must ask, are we listening closely enough? Are we connecting the dots when someone is quietly unraveling? Are we doing enough before it becomes too late? 6 lives were lost that day. We remember them not just as names on a list, but as children, teachers, protectors, each with dreams, families, and futures that were stolen and taken away from them in a snap. Let us honor them, not just in mourning, but in action. Advocate for stricter gun laws. Advocate for better red flag laws. Advocate for limiting these magazine clips that are high capacity. Maybe we should even think about limiting the amount of ammunition that someone can purchase at one time. I'm a gun owner. I was raised right outside of the country, and I went hunting, camping, and fishing all the time. I was raised with a rod and reel in one hand and a gun in the other. And I used to love to go hunting with my dad and camping with my dad and fishing with my dad. I loved all of that. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also don't think that a private individual needs a high-capacity magazine. When a gun is designed to hold 10 rounds, I don't think that you need a high-capacity magazine to double that. I don't think that gun owners, just because you can own an unlimited number of weapons, I don't think that you should. Now, I'm not really advocating for limiting the number of guns that someone can own, but I am for limiting the amount of ammunition you can buy for those guns at one time. Why would someone need 300 rounds of ammunition right now? Well, I'm going target practicing. Okay, but you can target practice without 300 rounds of ammunition. You don't need a 20-round magazine for a gun who's designed to have a 10-round magazine. There are ways to honor the Second Amendment without taking away your Second Amendment rights. And I think that we need to come to some sort of compromise. Look, I'm in the business of saving lives. I'm a medical professional. And I can't in good conscience say that, we just need to turn a blind eye to all of this, because people are dying. Innocent people are dying. Innocent children are dying. And we're not, as a society and as our government, we're not doing enough to try to prevent this. So there has to be some sort of compromise. It's both parties need to sit down at the table and be willing to compromise. Compromising is all about somebody giving up something so somebody else can gain something, right? So gun control advocates, Second Amendment advocates, you need to get together and you need to have an open mind and come to the table, and you need to try to do something to help put an end to this. Don't want our guns taken away from us. It's our Second Amendment constitutional right. I'm not advocating for that. But there has to be a way, and I don't know what that way is, but there has to be a way that we can come up with something to help slow this down that's happening, because it's occurring too often and too many people are dying. It's almost, you almost can't turn on the news without hearing about someone getting shot, and it's only a matter of time before another school shooting happens. I'm sure there's been one that's happened somewhere, that I just don't know about. I don't know. It seems like it's just another thing now. It's another segment in the news, and tonight's school shooting report, blah, blah, blah. So, and that's of course an over exaggeration, but I don't want it to get to that, right? So we need to try to do something before it reaches that part. So if you take anything away from tonight's episode, let it be this: we must listen when people speak, but we must also learn to ask why they stay quiet. And that about does it for tonight. Thank you for listening. Now, if you missed the first episode that I did back 2 years ago on the Nashville shooter. You can check it out at parareality.com. It's going to be posted on the homepage right below this episode for the next couple of weeks. And after that, if you are listening to this behind or whatever, after a couple of weeks, you can find it in the archive section on the website. All you got to do is look for the episode called The Nashville Shooter, and it was recorded on April the 3rd, 2023. And before I close it out for the evening, unfortunately, got to do those last commercials. I'll be right back.
BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an gestural implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
If you'd like to leave a comment about tonight's episode of Parareality, have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, or a story you'd like to tell, send me an email, sandman@parareality.com, or call the Secret Bunker at 615-692-1170 and leave me a message. Don't forget that by leaving me your message, you're giving me permission to play your comment back on the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow Parareality on social media. You can find the podcast on Facebook by looking for sandman.parareality, or you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram under the username @ParaRealRadio. You can also find Parareality on YouTube under the username Parareality1, and that's Parareality with the number 1 out behind it. Parareality.com is the home of the podcast on the web, and it's also where you can find paranormal news from all around the world in the Paranews section. And you can listen to past episodes in the archive section, all for the price of absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can buy yourself some swag in the official Parareality shop while you're there. You can also support the podcast for free by leaving me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Your reviews help the podcast to grow and reach even more people, and I would appreciate it very much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so send me those emails. Thank you. Okay, so I got to re-record that little social media commercial, as I call it, because unfortunately, for the entirety of the existence of this podcast, I have used Skype as my phone number for this. And I have loved Skype. I've had this phone number, 692-1170, for damn near 20 years. And unfortunately, Skype is shutting down in May because Microsoft is focusing on Teams instead of Skype, and they're leaving all of us people with Skype numbers high and dry. So I have been forced to get a new number for the podcast. For the moment, this might change in the future, but I had to do something quick here, so I can't. I don't want to lose a phone number. So the new phone number, take the 615-692-1170 number and forget about it. I couldn't get it transferred over or anything like that, so I had to get a completely new number. Damn it. So the new number for the Secret Bunker, 615-492-4364. That number to the Parareality Secret Bunker, once again, is 615-492-4364. And that is until further notice. 615-492-4364. Guys, I am pleased to tell you that I have relaunched my official Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you can get commercial-free episodes of this podcast and other bonus content. And for just a few bucks more, you'll also have access, or you can also gain access, should I say, to my companion podcast, Midnight Syndicate, and A Deeper Dive. Plus, you also have the opportunity to appear as a guest on the podcast. Subscribing to my Patreon not only helps support the podcast, but it also helps me continue to bring you quality content on a regular basis. As you know, I am a poor fledgling podcaster. I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't make money at this. So any little bit of support that you can do to help me and help this podcast grow is great. And any type of money that I earn off of Patreon or from merchandise or whatever goes right back into the podcast. I don't pocket a dime of anything. As a matter of fact, I still don't make enough to break even, right? I'm still losing money. So any little bit helps. But to be perfectly honest with you guys, I am not in this to make money. I do this because I love it. Sure, I would love for someone to come up and tell me they're going to pay me $200,000 a year to do the podcast. I will give you a weekly podcast instead of a bi-weekly podcast. And it'll be the best weekly damn podcast, by God, that you can get, because I will pour my heart and soul to it, because that will be all I would have to do. But unfortunately, I have a life and I have another job. And for me to put out what I think are quality episodes, I choose to only do it every other week and not once a week. And I hope it shows in my content. So by giving me a little bit of money to help would be greatly appreciated to offset some of my expenses. Now, another way that you can help the podcast grow that costs you absolutely nothing. If you don't want to join Patreon, if you're not a joiner, I get it. You don't have to. Now, by the way, Patreon does have a 7-day free trial, so you can join for free and try to suck up as much content as you possibly can. If you're not you don't want to pay money for stuff. I get it if you're not a joiner. Like I said, I totally understand. But one way you can help the podcast grow that costs absolutely nothing is whatever podcast app you're listening on, just give me a 3-star or better rating. That's all I ask, especially if you're using Apple, Spotify, or Amazon. That's the best way to help this podcast grow. Like I said, I'm not in it to make money. I don't expect to get rich off of this, but I would like for this podcast to reach as many ears as possible. So if you are listening and you like the content and can find it in your heart to please give me a 3-star or better review on whatever podcast app you're listening to, that would be great. It would help me grow the podcast and get into as many ears as possible, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Your help would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you are thinking about joining the Patreon, if you want to learn more about it, learn more about the tiers, see what all you can get, just go to patreon.com/parareality. You can find out all about it there. Like I said, they've got a 7-day free trial, so feel free to sign up for 7 days without spending any of your hard-earned money. Now, for more big news, tomorrow is May the 3rd. And that means it is time for the annual Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival in beautiful Townsend, Tennessee. And of course, I'm going to be there as a podcaster again this year, collecting stories of the freaky, the unusual, the paranormal, and the unexplained. My tent, well, it's going to be somewhere on Podcasters Row, I'm assuming. So if you're going to be there and you've had some kind of unexplained encounter of any kind, not just a cryptid kind or Bigfoot, I mean anything, stop by my tent, tell me your story, and get it on the podcast. I got a lot of great stories from the festival goers last year, and I anticipate that I'll get a lot more this year. Maybe I'll even get more than what I did last year. And it doesn't have to be, just because it's the Bigfoot Festival doesn't mean the story you tell me has to be about Bigfoot or cryptids. Of course it can be. It can be about Bigfoot, any other cryptid. UFO, I saw a UFO. I got kidnapped and anally probed by a UFO. I saw an alien. My house is haunted. Something weird happened to me. I saw something that I can't explain. I had something happen to me that I can't explain. Ghost, whatever. Whatever kind of freaky, unexplained, weird story of a true encounter that you've had. It needs to be true, please. And you want to get it on the podcast, please, please, please look for my tent wherever a podcaster's row is. It's going to be a big charcoal, black top, 10 by 10 tent with Parareality logos splattered all over it. Come by and find me, tell me your story, get it on the podcast. And if you're going to be there and you don't have a story to tell, maybe you haven't had anything weird happen to you yet, stop by my tent anyway and just say hello. I'd love to meet you guys. If you're listening and you're going to be there, stop on by. Even if you have a story but you don't want to tell it because maybe you're shy or whatever, I don't care. Just stop by and say hello. I'd love to meet you guys face to face. I'd love to be able to see what my listeners look like and be able to talk to you guys face to face, maybe get some feedback. I'd love to meet you guys. I'll have some merch to sell, some shirts and stuff, but like I said, that's not why I'm going. I'm going to collect stories, not to specifically sell merchandise. So if you're going to be there and you have had a story and you want to get it on the show, come see me, tell me your story. If you're going to be there and you don't have a story to tell, stop by anyway and say hi. You don't have to buy any merchandise. I just want to meet you. Of course, it'd be great if you bought a shirt, but you don't have to. I'd just like to meet you. Tickets are still available, and you can get them at thebigfest.com, or you can get them at the gate tomorrow. I really hope to see some of you guys there. Well, that's enough rambling. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode of Parareality. The next episode is going to drop on May 16th, 2025 at 8 p.m. Central U.S. time. So make sure you turn on, tune in, and find out. I hope that this podcast opens your mind up to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. I hope that you have a wonderful evening, a great weekend, and I hope to see some of you guys at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival tomorrow. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait to meet you guys and hear all your stories. Going to be a fun time. And if you don't happen to show up, then have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys again in a couple of weeks. Good night, everybody.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.
Hey, it's not over. Thanks for sticking around. I got something to tell you. Do you want to be a member of the Secret Sanctum? Well, if you do, there's only one way to do that. Somewhere on parareality.com is a link hidden in my website. And if you can find that link and click on it, you'll be granted access to the secret bunker, and you'll become a member of the Secret Sanctum. It's 100% free. It's not going to cost you anything. And once you become a member, you'll have access to some secret audio files and secret documents, some of which are exclusive only to Parareality and the members of the Secret Sanctum. You'll also get a free Parareality Secret Sanctum t-shirt. Just fill out the form and let me know what size you are, where you're located in your name, and I'll get that right out to you. So if you want to be a member of the Parareality Secret Sanctum and have access to the secret bunker, find the link.